Good evening, Broncos country. Let's give it a moment for the stream to breathe. Again, we want to make sure this is an all inclusive platform. All right. And we are good. Welcome in, everyone, to another installment of the Orange and Blue View. I'm one of your co hosts, Ron White. On that side of me is my partner in crime. You know him as Dylan Vaughn Arks. How are you doing today, Dylan, on a week out from another Kansas City victory in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, that was a tough one to swallow for sure. Two in a row's not been done for quite a while. I believe the Patriots were the last to do it back in the early 2000s, and
Mm-hmm.
to uh, to see the Chiefs probably at least this iteration of the Chiefs like the worst we've seen of the Patrick Mahomes era, and they still went and did it, man. And it's just so frustrating, and I think I'm kind of just accepting the next decade's gonna suck for a while. So gonna try and focus more on the Broncos instead of the division as a whole, I guess.
Yeah, understood. I mean, we have to focus on the Denver Broncos. That's where our heart lies. But it's just so frustrating, when your division rival just gets to the big game year in and year out, and they come out on top. And for that game in particular, the 49ers, they had their chances. They had their chances throughout the game, and they blew it. But um, hopefully the Broncos can get back on track sometime soon, sometime here in the near future, to go toe to toe with Kansas City. But let's see who we have in the chat here. We got David Youngkin coming in. Thank you, David, for always showing up, my man. We appreciate you as always. He says, "Evening, Ron and Dylan. I read that the Broncos might re-sign Cushionberry. Any word on that, or was that just a rumor?" So hold that one, David. We will get back to that. As we discuss some of the in-house free agents here. But that is a great question, and we'll get to that shortly. And thank you for coming in. We have David McElrath coming in as always with a $5 super chat. Thank you, my man. It's always good to see you in the chat. He says, "Good evening, Broncos country. Ron, Dylan, and Deacon Scott. Hashtag Buckham times three. Hashtag MHH for life. Hashtag Denver Broncos for life. Hashtag Knicks or McCarthy." Yes, thank you, David, for coming in. So yeah, you've been riding this Knicks or McCarthy train for a while now, and we'll see. The draft is about a few months away, and we'll see what happens at pick 12, and even if the Broncos decide to stick at pick 12, we'll see what happens. But I think for Knicks or McCarthy, those one of those two players usually does come up um and these mock drafts that are coming up, Dylan. And so, with that, it'll be interested to see the direction that Sean Payton and George Payton go there. But again, thank you for coming in, David.
Yeah, thanks so much, David.
All right, let's see who else we have coming in. Got some more hellos. We got String Guy coming in with good evening, all. Good evening to you as well, String Guy. Thank you for coming in. Got Todd Ossendorf. Hello, Broncos family. Hello to you too, sir. Hopefully, you and your family are doing well. Got Mike S coming in. Thank you, Mike. What's up, Ron, Dylan, Scott, and Broncos country? What's up with you, sir? Hopefully, you're having a great Saturday. Um, so let's get back, Dylan, to the topic, and David coming in again with more talk on some of the in-house free agents. Thank you, David. But before we get to this, I want to get to before we get to our own um, free agents list that who we think the Broncos should resign. Well, what are your thoughts there? And I'll bring back up David's comment here to Cushenberry. What are your thoughts there as it relates to Cushenberry? I know you and I were talking earlier today,
Mm-hmm.
and it's probably Cushenberry has outplayed himself, I think, in Denver, and he's going to be expensive. But what are your thoughts there as far as potentially the Broncos considering re-signing him?
Yeah, I think he'd be back if it weren't for the giant weight of Russell Wilson's contract holding this team back, and it's gonna be hard to re-sign anyone really, but or even
Mhm.
go after guys unless you're getting them on a cheap deal. You're gonna have to do some restructuring of other players, trades. But yeah, Kush had to go ahead and ball out in his last year, of course, and it's gonna be rough. I'm not sure who's gonna fill in there. Maybe Forsyth, um, but yeah, it's just hard to see him coming back because he's gonna get some big money.
Yeah. Uh, Again, thank you, Dave, for coming in. And that's the key here, where you know Kush definitely did have a fantastic 2023 campaign. Given the cap situation for the Broncos, David, um, I think the only way that Kush remains a Bronco is if, well, obviously they'll have to take care of some um, other matters in house. Kind of figure out what they're going to do with some of their other in-house free agents. Obviously, some restructures of current players are going to have to be involved with that as well. And if Kush can take somewhat of a discount, that can definitely be a possibility for him resigning. But I just feel as though, given his play this past season, I just don't see where he would come back. And you're right, Dylan. This Russell Wilson contract has has hindered the Broncos a lot here, with not only focusing on some of these in-house free agents, but bringing in other free agents from other teams. Don't expect the Broncos to be big spenders in free agent, but again, I'm not completely ruling it out, David. But again, from what I've seen, and remember the after season presser where they're still high on Forsyth. The Broncos are very high on Forsyth. So I think, given how he's played and their optimism on Forsyth, I just don't know. I just don't see how Kush comes back. All right. And then let's see. I want to bring this one up as well because I did flash it here, David, as it pertains to a few others. I could see JJ, Sutton, Jones, and Simmons gone, but I also believe everyone is on the chopping block. Yeah. As far as the players you named here, David, I think the two most likely to go is Jerry Judy and DJ Jones. Um, Sutton could potentially be gone depending on what happens, as related to that contract. I think with Sutton though, it's I have a strong feeling. The Broncos drafted Sutton. Sutton is now kind of developed into the star receiver, and in my mind, I think Sutton's probably going to stay. Again, this is just how I feel. And then Simmons, I have a feeling, depending on if a restructure happens with Simmons, Simmons could potentially stay as well. But he could also go. It kind of depends on what he's looking for contract wise, and if there's another team out there, and if the Broncos are willing to trade him to get more compensation, draft compensation as well. So you're right. Simmons could potentially be gone, but I think it's more so me wanting him to say. But yeah, I think the most likely candidates out of this, yep, Jerry Judy and DJ Jones. What about you on that one, Dylan? What do you think?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I think JJ and DJ Jones are both gone. Judy has just not worked out here in Denver, and he's got some attitude, and it's just never got things going. DJ Jones played really well last season, but this season he was non-existent, and in a year where the Broncos desperately needed to get anything they could out of the defensive line, he just didn't step up to the plate, and that's really unfortunate. As for Sutton, I agree with you there as well. I think he could be back, but the Broncos might have to restructure. We'll see how
Mhm.
if he's amenable to that. Hopefully he is, because we got the old Sutton back, and I feel that if we had a little more consistent quarterback play, his yards probably would have been up to par as well, probably breaking 1,000. He was in the 700s, I believe, and but hey, maybe that saves him from getting traded. Who knows? Maybe those lower numbers could help him a little, but that's me dreaming. And Simmons, yeah, I'm in the same boat there as well. I'd love to have him back. He's been one of my favorite players ever since the Broncos drafted him, and he's a leader on that defense. And if he makes an exit, Patrick Surtain's going to have to step up in that leadership role.
Yeah, and then speaking of Simmons, the safety room in general, we're going to now get to um, our key in-house free agents, the ones that we think the Broncos should consider re-signing. And I'll start first, and that's PJ Locke. So the unrestricted free agent, PJ Locke really did step up when he came in. I believe it was activated October 7th, and he made a big impact in that game against Green Bay. Sealing the game with that with that interception coming in for Kareem Jackson, who was ejected. But I would say, with his current terms of the contract for 2023, he had $1.4 million for 1 year. I think about $250,000 guaranteed there at signing. But I think he's a very underrated player. And given what you saw in this past season, he had 53 total tackles, 3 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. And he even played the entire season. So just think about, that impact there coming in, kind of during the middle of the season. I think it would do the Broncos well to re-sign him so that they can have that production moving forward. Because as we just alluded to, who knows what's going to happen with Justin Simmons. And then the safety room as it is, Dylan, it's very bare. We have Caden Stearns, but he's injury prone. And Turner Yell, I mean, I'd rather not see another sighting of Turner Yell at all. And JL Skinner, we all had high hopes for Skinner. Maybe he can come in next year and make some sort of impact. But I guess given the uncertainty and the unknown within the safety room, it would just do well for the Denver Broncos to consider re-signing PJ Locke.
Yeah, I completely agree there. I think PJ really came onto the scene, especially like you said with Kareem Jackson, the human missile, getting himself ejected every other game, which was pretty annoying. But Kareem was kind of on his way out anyway,
Yes.
due to his age, and he still brought that fire to the defense and a little too much. So, but it gave PJ a chance to step up, and he did exactly that. And if you can't re-sign him, and assuming Simmons is gone in a trade package, if you can't get him to restructure, Caden Stearns, no snaps whatsoever. The dude just can't stay on the field. We know Vance Joseph has something against playing his rookies, like Riley Moss at corner. He didn't get to play, and then JL Skinner. He had kind of an injury, but you thought maybe towards the second half of the season you'd see him, and we just didn't. And I'm in the same boat with DTR. Keep him if he's going to be on the field. He was solid enough on special teams, and I'd rather not see him playing on the defense.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, it's hopefully we'll see. We can get some help there at safety. Hopefully they can bring him back. Let's see who else we have in the chat. Oh, you want to go with yours? I'm sorry. You want to go with your free agent?
Sure, yeah. So we're gonna stick in the secondary here,
Okay.
and it's not a sexy pick. It's not, and we got to get used to that. It's gonna be like that for at the very least this season. Fabian Moreau, the corner. I think he played pretty solid, filling in for Tamari Mathis, who looked just dreadful this year. And while not someone you want starting all the time, I think Fabian's a solid depth guy to bring back, have some continuity in that secondary, especially if you're going to have some turnover. Because I believe K'Wan Williams, I don't think he'll be back. And if Simmons is traded, and then you've got we don't know if Damari Mathis is even going to bounce back. So I think he's just a solid option for, again, continuity.
Yeah, that's a good one. Because as you just alluded to, we don't, outside of Patrick Surtain, it's Damari Mathis who took several steps back last year, and K'Wan Williams again injury prone. So, you need depth in the event that you have to have a Fabian Moreau come in and step in. Now, we all were encouraged with the Riley Moss pick, and we were hoping to see, him out in the field a lot more, but we don't know what's going to happen next year. And so I think just kind of having that security blanket just in case something goes wrong, I think Fabian Moreau would be. Now, of course, you're right. He's not the sexiest. He's not flashy. But, when he was inserted, I think he kind of fell off a little bit at the end of the season. But I would say when he first came on, he did hold his own. And I think that you kind of need that, especially kind of given what's currently on the secondary. So I would say that that's a good one. All right, let's see who else we have in the chat. Got String Guy coming in. Kind of going back to QB here. Thank you, String Guy. He says, draft either May, JJ, or Knicks. Hey, I just fixed the team for next year. LOL. Well, yeah, I mean, it'll go a far way into making an attempt to fix the roster. String Guy, I will give you that. But yeah, as far as which one, there's it kind of, everyone has their own flavor. But again, the Broncos cannot leave the draft without selecting a quarterback. A quarterback has to be selected. I would say, again, my favorite is Caleb Williams. He's probably going to be out of reach. But, if a May or Daniel starts to fall, or if the Broncos deem that Drake May is their guy and they want to go up and get him, I'm all for that. It's, again, they have to have someone on this roster. They have to select this one and start developing this quarterback. I mean, again, we just talked about it, guys, Patrick Mahomes isn't going anywhere. He isn't going anywhere. And now, Jim Harbaugh is with the Chargers. So this division it's tough. And so you have to have a competent quarterback at the helm to try to compete. But yeah, String Guy, your points here that I think getting someone at the QB position in the draft would definitely kind of help this team a long way.
Yeah, definitely. And out of these three, like May's probably the obvious favorite there. But you would have to probably trade up for him. Not I've seen rumors that NFL teams aren't as enamored as maybe the media is.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that's true or not, who knows? But either way, you'd be trading up for him because I don't think he falls past 5. And then there's even rumblings of JJ McCarthy. He's getting a lot more hype, going top
Mm-hmm.
10. It just comes down to who Peyton thinks can compete in his system and compete for an AFC West crown. It could be one of these three guys, but he's going to make that call at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's Peyton's decision, and he, I guess, with some assistance with George Payton, that they're going to do some heavy scouting to see who they think the guy is. And again, I'm rewatching this tape, Dylan, and I don't know. I change my pick a lot when I when I rewatch tape, but I would say Drake May usually comes in at 1 or 2 for me. Again, I just what he can do, just I think spreading the ball around and escaping the pressure and taking off and running, and some of those throws, those intermediate passes, and some of the deep ball. I think it's good and exciting. So again, I think that's a perfect fit for Peyton. But that's not to say a Bo Nix or a JJ McCarthy or a Michael Pratt or Spencer Rattler can't come in and develop under Peyton's tutelage. But again, it's gonna be who Peyton decides, and again, you just need that person on the roster. You gotta have them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see who else we have in the chat. We got Mr. Michael Ronquillo coming in as always. Thank you, Mike. Always coming in, supporting us on the platforms and on Twitter. He says, "Good evening, Ron and Dylan on Orange and Blue View. Go Broncos." Good evening to you too, sir. And again, thank you for coming in as always. We appreciate you, my man.
Always good to see you, Michael.
Yep. All right, so we can get to our next free agent, our in-house free agent that we want to keep. And then my selection here is Will Lutz. So with Will Lutz, in 2023 he had a base salary of a little over $1 million. Very solid on special teams this year. The field goal percentage was about 88%, so 30 out of 34 field goals made. He was also good in the extra point department. So I think he was an upgrade over Brandon McManus. And looking at the other kickers out, I don't see too much of an upgrade even out here on the free agent market for kickers. So I would say, Will Lutz came in and was solid, and that should be a signing that the Broncos should do. I think Will Lutz definitely does deserve another contract with the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, Lutz played pretty solid last season, and didn't think he'd be our kicker because we signed Brett Maher so early on, even, and then he had his struggles. So weeks before we get Will Lutz coming in, we trade for him, and yeah, he played solid. I was really hoping that was a good decision, and it turned out to be, because, geez, yeah, grabbing your kicker that late is a little scary. It's kind of usually you'd like your kicker to kind of be an afterthought. You don't really want to hear about them too much. But yeah, Lutz was definitely a good pickup there, and if you let him go, like you said, who else is out there? I mean, there's no reason to try and find another kicker going into this next season.
Yeah, and I was even nervous when Maher came on, just because, I think was it the year prior where he was missing a lot of those. I think it was missing a lot of field goals with the extra points.
Yeah, with Dallas, I
With
believe.
Dallas, yeah. And I was like, I don't know, but I think Lutz coming in late was a little nerve wracking. But then the whole familiarity with Sean Payton, I was a bit encouraged. I'm like, okay, it's not as bad just with that familiarity. So, um, okay. So you can go next. Who do you have as next on your list for in-house free agents?
Yeah, so next I have Mike Purcell. Again, not a huge name, but maybe a name that needs to stick around because just like the secondary, we need to bring back some continuity on the defensive line, and the defensive line was dreadful last season. And Mike, he didn't see as much playing time as he usually would, which maybe he should have because DJ Jones wasn't doing a whole lot. But yeah, he's just a guy that can get in there and eat up some blocks, stuff the run, and not too much as a pass rusher. But at this point, I think stopping the run might be a little more imperative for this team because how many times we see this team get down and then it's like, all right, time to run the ball. Just beat them with the ground game, and you just can't stop it. It's just the worst way, grinding out a game and losing like that is not something that's fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And you're right. It's, there are varying opinions on Mike Purcell, but yeah, I'm with you as far as continuity and just stopping the run, getting off these blocks. That's just been, I mean, you've seen it time and time again this past season, Dylan, where these running backs on the opposing teams are just chunking out yards. Like, the defensive line is just getting whipped. They're getting whipped.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think the only reason for me to bring back Mike Purcell is definitely just to stop them. I think, yeah, you're right. The whole defensive line in general needs an upgrade, especially those help with Zach Allen, some more defensive tackles to kind of help with maybe getting some of that interior pass rush going. But I would say, yeah, stopping the run should be of importance. And yep, Mike Purcell can definitely help do that. I totally agree with you there. All righty, let's see who else we have in the chat. Again, guys, we don't have Mr. Producer tonight, so it's just us here. We got Roy Osborne coming in. Thank you, Roy. He says, "Hey there, Ron and Dylan. I want to see us move back for more picks. Pick up a mid-round QB." Yeah, Roy, that this is. I wouldn't be mad at this decision. If the Broncos decide to, I'll say it this way, Roy. It depends on who's there. I think it's really going to depend on who is there at pick 12. Like, if an edge is there, if an edge you like is there, if Brock Bowers is there, I'm not moving. I'm taking the card up to the podium. I'm running that card up to the podium. But yeah, it's just going to depend on who's there. But, let's say the edge or two that is high on the Broncos board, they're off. Obviously, Brock Bowers might be off. Yeah. Then I wouldn't mind, the Broncos moving back to acquire more picks. Maybe they can address QB in a day 2 pick, maybe getting like a Rattler or a Pratt, maybe picking up offensive line help, when they do move back. But yeah, I'm not opposed to it. Again, it's just going to depend on who is there at pick 12.
Yeah, I think in just a general sense, it makes a lot of sense for this team to trade back and get more picks. If you just take like, oh, who's going to be there out of it, because we have no idea. We have kind of a general idea, but if we're just thinking of it as what this team needs, it would be to trade back and pick up more picks because there's so many holes on this team, and it's not going to just be this off season and then, okay, we're good. We got our players. This team's ready to compete again. It's going to take a couple of years. So if you could plug up more holes in this draft, that would be perfect. And even if, say, a Knicks falls to 12, if Sean Payton doesn't love him, someone else might, and they might want to get up there and take him at 12 so you can trade back and get more picks. So, yeah, I think that would be the dream scenario for me, at least, is to get stockpile more picks.
Yeah, and that might be the theme in the draft for the Broncos for a few rounds, right? Kind of trading back, even in, there's no second round, but maybe in the third round, trading back and picking up, round 4, round 5 picks. Because right, there's so many, and as Steven's coming in here, Steven Eckenbaum coming in. Thank you, Steven. He's bringing up some of the needs here. There's so many needs on this team. He says trade Judy, Simmons, Bowles, and draft whatever, but don't trade up. Okay. Yeah, he's echoing kind of what we were saying here. We need a QB, left tackle, defensive tackle, corner, safety, center, wide receiver, and cut Patrick. Yeah, I mean, I don't know about. I mean, it may financially make sense to cut Patrick. I mean, I think I'm more of I'm a big Tim Patrick guy, so I think my heart doesn't want to part with Tim Patrick.
I hear you on
But
that
I
one.
think from a financial perspective, it makes sense. But yes, Stephen, points, but point remains where there's so many different needs on this team, and you've outlined it perfectly. And again, that aligns with what we're saying in trading, to kind of stockpile more picks. Broncos need to consider trading back for a few rounds to kind of fill some of those voids. Thank you for coming in. We appreciate you.
Well, I
All right.
believe we have some stars here from Lawrence.
Okay, Lawrence, cool. You've got Lawrence Rivera coming in. Thank you, my man. He says, we are definitely not a hot spot destination, and anyone who steps on the field is going to have to work really hard. Yeah. What's your take on this one, Dylan?
Yeah, anyone who's going to be sticking around, or even free agents we bring in, or draft picks, this team is going to be in a rebuild. And if you're not going to put the effort forward and you're going to work your butt off, you're not going to be on this team, period. We're already in rebuild mode. We've already started stripping down things. Like, if certain players aren't committed to being here, they're not going to make the team. And we know Sean Payton could be kind of an a-hole and a stickler for effort on the field. So yeah, I definitely agree with this take here, Lawrence.
Yeah, Lawrence, you do bring up a good point. Right now, it's definitely not a hotspot or a preferred destination for any free agent. I think, but the pull here again, despite how the roster looks, despite the lay of the land for the Denver Broncos, you may just have some players who want to play for Sean Payton. I think that's, I guess, somewhat the silver lining in this. If you want to look at it, that Sean Payton still does have some pull within the NFL. So, but yeah, if anyone's looking for Super Bowl contention for the Denver Broncos, that's not the case here. And you're right, with that second point of whoever steps on the field is going to have to work really hard. You're absolutely correct that Sean Payton does expect a lot out of his players, and anyone suited up in a Denver Broncos uniform is going to have to put the work in. Before Sean Payton, with Hackett, Hackett didn't hold his players accountable, and you're seeing that now with Payton, that the players are going to be held accountable. So if you suit up, you're going to have to put the work in, work hard, and if not, you're going to hear about it. But yeah, your point is a good point here. We appreciate you coming in. All righty, let's see here. Who do we have in the chat? I see a lot of people saying they want to keep Cushionberry. Well, I do see a few that says walk and then keep. Um, let's see who else. Oh yeah, like Michael Davis says the Broncos may tag Cushionberry. Yeah, potentially. We'll see what happens there, Michael. Again, I would, if they can, I would love the Broncos to bring back Cush. I would love for them to bring back Cush. But again, just given what we've seen, I don't. And again, they're high on Forsyth. That just leads me to believe that Cush will no longer be here. But we'll see.
Still got to get under that cap before we could do anything.
Yeah. That again, that's the big kicker here with the cap and this dead money. That this is looming large. And again, it's going to hinder a lot of people from coming back. Again, some restructures will happen. We will see some restructures. But yeah, to get on this cap, a lot of players will have to be traded or just downright cut. So, all righty, let's see. Who else we have in the chat? Just a second, guys. Looking around. I think I did see someone ask about. Trying to find the comment. Sorry, guys. Just give us 1 second. Oh, String Guy coming in with another comment. This is the one I wanted to grab. Thank you. String Guy says, Ron, would you trade PS2 and other players to trade up for May? Thank you. This is a good question. A lot of you guys, I may have an unpopular opinion here, but I think, again, given this victory of Kansas City has changed my mind. I've changed tunes on this one, Dylan. And to answer your question, flat out, String Guy, I would say yes. I'm going to say yes, just because you guys have to look at it from this perspective. Again, as I just mentioned, as we all know, number 15 from the Chiefs is not going anywhere anytime soon. With that, do you think PS2 by himself is going to help you get, and not even Super Bowl contention, Dylan, playoff contention? Well, again, he is a great piece. We know what PS2 can do. But again, if you don't have the quarterback to go and compete with Patrick Mahomes and these other quarterbacks in AFC, then what? I guess what is PS2 going to do for you just by himself? And I understand we need to build around him. I get that. I'm not saying that the roster doesn't need to be built out. I understand that. There are definitely roster needs across the board. But really, in order to beat, the Chiefs and the Ravens and the Bills and the Bengals, when, Joe Burrow comes back healthy, the quarterback of the Broncos has to outplay their quarterback. It's just as simple as that. The quarterback of that team has to outplay Patrick Mahomes. That's the only way that team will win. So, in my mind, String Guy, again, it's going to pain for me to say that because I'm a big PS2 fan. I really am. And I think he's done great things for this team since he entered the league from Alabama. But they have to, again, and then if Drake May is their guy, I think let me put that condition. If Sean Payton thinks that Drake May is their guy, then yes, you do make that trade to trade PS2.
Yeah. I agree with you, man. It's because there's been a lot of fans and whatnot saying, "Oh, we need to trade PS2." And it's like, okay, the only way I'm trading that dude, that all pro, the best corner in the league, is if you can guarantee me you're getting one of those top two guys, top three guys at quarterback. Otherwise, you're giving them up for, oh, let's some future draft picks, lottery tickets. I don't need that. I want to go get a quarterback. At least if I'm going to get a lottery ticket, I want that quarterback. And yeah, I've definitely swung on this as well. Um, if Drake May is in fact the guy that Sean Payton wants, and he needs to use PS2 to go up and get him, you just might have to pull the trigger on that.
Yeah. I mean, this again, guys, this league, I mean, Mahomes is the face of the league. I mean, that's your everyone's trying to be like number 15. Every team is trying to get on Kansas City level and beat them. And again, you have to have that horse in place, that trigger man in place to do so. And the Broncos, I know they tried with Paxton Lynch. That was a fail. So they have made an attempt to at least draft a quarterback. Obviously, they took Jack Kelly as well. But, you know, going up and getting one high, again, if Peyton believes May is his guy, then, again, he needs to go ahead and pull that trigger. It's time to do it the hard way, go in the draft, pick your guy, and develop him. So the Broncos can get back to relevancy.
Mm-hmm.
Have to do it.
And here, I want to pull this up kind of as a follow up. Frank Wolf comes in and says, defense wins championships, QBs control the game. Yeah, but without a consistent quarterback, are you even getting a chance to go to the playoffs, let alone the Super Bowl?
Right.
Because you see teams like the Browns, they very well could be back next year. Their defense was great, but is what, year 3 of Deshaun Watson not playing or not playing good? And how many times can you consistently get to the playoffs without a star quarterback? You can't. The final 4 teams have a QB that made waves for them, and I know Brock Purdy, there's a conversation whether he's elite, which I don't think he's elite. I think he's good enough to get that team there.
Yep.
But if you don't have that quarterback, the defense doesn't matter. We know that, because what have we hammered home with Trevor Siemian the year after Manning? You had a pretty mid to bad quarterback. Your defense was great, but you didn't get to the playoffs in every year after that. So to me, it's the quarterback. I'm sorry. Like, a defense is great. And when you have a great defense like the Chiefs had this year and a lackluster offense, but you still have that quarterback who's going to give you a chance. And that's just how I see it.
Yeah, and again, thank you, Frank, for coming in with this. And I mean, let's look at the defenses, Frank, for these two teams in the Super Bowl. They were both top 5 defenses. I believe the 49ers were, I might be getting my rankings wrong, but I know they both were top 5. I think they were number 3 scoring, and the Chiefs were number 4 scoring defense.
Something around there.
But what was who ultimately came up and won the game? Like, what was the turning point? What was the defining factor, or who was a defining factor for that game? It was Patrick Mahomes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you kind of have to think about, you're right. Defenses, I know that's kind of we've seen it. We haven't seen it a lot lately, Dylan, as far as defenses kind of winning these championships. I think that somewhat still holds true. But then again, you're seeing this league kind of shift to more of, that offense. So a lot of those, um, again, a lot of that Andy Reid style offense where just receivers are just getting open. And again, trying to stop that, good luck. It's hard. So, again, I'm not completely, disagreeing with you saying defenses win championships, but you have to look at it in its context where, yep, defenses for both teams in the Super Bowl can be great. I mean, but ultimately it's going to come back down to when your quarterback needs to make a play, can they? I mean, we saw it with the Super Bowl last year with the Eagles and the Chiefs. I mean, Philly had the better roster and Philly had a great defense. I think they had a top defense that year as well. But who came out on top? Right? So again, you just have to kind of think about things kind of within that context of your quarterback is going to have to come out on top and make that play and be the one to win the game. All righty, but great comment there. Good discussion. All righty. So we can get to our last free agent signing, and I'll let you go first on this one, Dylan. Who do you have last as far as who you want the Broncos to re-sign?
Yeah, so for my last pick, I have little Jordan Humphrey.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've already talked about how Jerry Jeudy probably out of here. Sutton, maybe. We don't know. But if either one or both of them are gone, Denver's going to need wide receiver help. And little Jordan, he's worked with Sean Payton before, obviously, in New Orleans. And he didn't have many catches and yards this season, but he made some explosive plays when he had to. And I just think he's a solid guy to have around, especially, say, if a Sutton leaves, he's another Jordan's just another big body guy that you can get the ball to. And no matter who's under center, we're going to need some guys that are familiar with this system. And he's got a pretty cool name. That helps too.
Yeah, little Jordan. Yeah, you're right. He, like I said, all about familiarity. Little Jordan Humphrey, he did come in, made some good plays, this season. And it'll be nice. Yeah, depending on what happens with the wide receiver room, Dylan, you're right. He'll be a nice guy to keep around. We know, yep, Judy's on his way out. We'll see what happens with Sutton. Patrick, we know Mims is going to be there. So, any type of pass catchers, the more pass catchers, the better, regardless of who they have their quarterback. But yeah, that's definitely good. My last is Cam Fleming. And again, just bringing back just for that swing tackle role. We it's he came in a few games. I think he came in was that the Chargers game, I believe, when McGlinchey was banged up last year.
There was a few games like
yeah,
that.
there were a few games near the end of the season.
Yeah.
And again, you just don't know with the injuries to the tackles. For the base salary in 2023, did have $1.7 million, but there's some bonuses in there. So I think you can bring him back on a relatively good deal. But yeah, just kind of having him as that swing option in the event that Bowles or McGlinchey does go down. I think that would have. But again, that shouldn't preclude the Broncos for drafting a tackle as well. I do think that the drafting a tackle should definitely be a position that the Broncos need to be looking at. And this tackle class is quite deep. So, if not round one, maybe in the later rounds. But I would just say with the veteran and the experience of Cam Fleming, could be helping to re-sign for Denver.
Yeah, and that's bringing it back to the point of continuity. He's bringing back in this system. He already knows it. And yeah, that swing tackle is so essential that obviously you don't want him starting for an extended period of time, but that's not what you would be bringing him back for. You could head to the draft to find your guy. Whether it's, I would hope in the first 3 rounds you could find someone in there of starting ability, and if not, Cam can step in just for a little bit and hold it down, hopefully.
Yes. All right, let's see. Oh, we got David Youngkin coming in with another super chat. Thank you, sir. 499. We appreciate you, my man. He says some people want to build a defense for 2 years, then go get a QB. Issue with that, Sean Payton doesn't have that long to do all of that. Yeah, and David, that's actually a valid point here. Um, now, Sean Payton doesn't have a long leash to wait to get Denver's trigger man. We saw he was trying to make it work with Russell Wilson, and that was a failure. So now it's time for him to swing for the fences. Now again, we'll see what they do in the draft, but this you have to have the most important piece at the roster set. You have to try to go find that guy at quarterback. And I'm with you that they want the defense to be built first, and then the trenches, and then the QB. Well, I don't know if that's the best plan because who's to say the QBs in next year or the year after are going to be good? Because even looking at the QBs coming out for 2025, that's not promising from what I've seen. And who knows even after that, right? So, when you have, again, it's more of a top-heavy QB class here, obviously, but when you have the Drake Mays and the Jaden Daniels and the Caleb Williams, Bo Nix and McCarthy's here, go get them. Again, if they think that is their guy, go get him. And then you can fill out the roster accordingly. Again, this is going to be a few years of rebuilding anyway. So go get your quarterback, build up the trenches, and then you can plug and play some pieces later on in the draft, and whatever you can get out of the free agent class. Again, I know they're not going to be big spenders, but maybe pick up a piece or two in free agency, and let's go from here. But again, the time is to get the quarterback now. Strike when you can, when you have good prospects, and then kind of fill out the roster accordingly. But yeah, this is a great point, David.
Yeah, David, thank you for the comment. We really appreciate it. And so there's 2 philosophies you can go by, at least right now. So you get your quarterback this year, and then you slowly bring him along while you build up the team, or you build the nest around him, build up your defense, get some skill position players, what have you, and once you have that built up enough, take a quarterback later, and then you could use the draft picks you have to move up or whatever you need to do. It really just depends on what they do this year. If they are at 12 and there's quarterbacks available, they trade back. That'll let you know, hey, we're looking to build the nest. We're not trying to use a first round pick on a guy we don't fully believe in. And even if you want to get up to a Drake May or a Jaden Daniels or a Caleb Williams, are you going to be able to outbid the other teams if one of those guys slips for some reason? Or even if you just want to get up to the first 3 draft selections where they're probably all going to go 1, 2, 3, you need to have a trade partner to come down. Can you convince one of those guys, hey, you don't need a quarterback. Here's Patrick Surtain, some picks, maybe another player or 2, and to come down to 12. So it's just, it's really hard, and Sean Payton, I'm sure he has an idea of what he wants. He might even know exactly what he wants to do, but it takes 2 to tango.
Yeah. And again, I mean, you're right on the different types of philosophies, Dylan. And David, who's to say that they can't try to build kill two birds with one stone of build a defense this year and get their quarterback. Right? Again, we did mention that they can go defense in the first round, get that edge, or if they, I don't really see a corner, but maybe getting a corner, and then getting a Spencer Rattler in day two, right? You just, you don't know. So again, that could happen, where you can do both. Both can happen in this draft. Again, it's just going to be a matter of who they like, who Peyton likes, who's there at 12 when they select. I think those are really the two things here of. But yeah, it both happen. But yeah, I think again your point is taken in the sense of, yeah, people want to just build it out kind of outside in, where you kind of need to look at it from inside out, of getting the quarterback, looking at the trenches, and then you build out from there. Mm-hmm. I think that's the smarter way to build this roster.
Yeah, and one thing I forgot to add too, in terms of Sean Payton not having that long, I don't know if I fully buy that. He was brought in, and the owners looked at him and said, "Hey, you could try this thing out with Russ, but if you don't like him, you can pull the plug, and you could put us in $85 million worth of debt." I think they might be able to, or be willing to give him a little more leeway, unless there's like some catastrophic drop off that doesn't have to do with talent on roster. If he's messing up and making simple coaching mistakes often, but I think he might have a bigger leash, but that's just me.
Yeah, I mean, I think Sean Payton does have a. I mean, yeah, you're right. I think the leash is somewhat big, but again, I think the pressure is on a little bit more. I guess, if you know what I mean. Of, yeah, he the Penner group brought him in. He kind of has a lot of say so when it comes to everything, but it's even more pressure now that, yeah, you've tried to make Russ work. Now you concluded that it doesn't work. At least his style of play doesn't work with your offensive scheme. Now, Peyton, it's on you to go find that guy. Mm-hmm. And I think the pressure now is, you have to make sure you hit on the guy.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing of, you make sure you hit on the guy. Now, I think it also may depend on where you find the guy. I think if it's, that later round pick and he doesn't work out, might be okay, right? You swung, you miss, right? But if it's a first round quarterback and he doesn't work out, then again that pressure mounts.
Yeah.
And it's, well, what do we do now? We have to maybe look at free agents for next year, roll with Stidham again, maybe look at the draft next year. So again, I think that's kind of where the pressure mounts a bit if you take a quarterback in the first round, if it doesn't hit.
Yeah, and if you don't find your guy this year in the draft, you better swing next year, because like, especially if they decide, oh, we're going to build up the nest, like you got to kind of find your guy next year. There's Shadur, Carson Beck. There's a kid, I can't remember his name. He was at Kentucky last year. Those are some guys to look at, but that's too far out for me to even worry about right now.
Exactly. Yep. All righty. Let's see. We are about at time, guys. So I'm just going to look through the chat to see if we have any more comments, any more questions. All right. Let's see here. Oh, we got Michael Ronk coming in with the Broncos did bring back. Thank you, Mike. Linebacker Jonas Griffith. Yep, on the 1-year deal. So we did see that they're bringing him back. It's good. I like the fact that Griffith is coming back on a 1-year deal.
Yeah, some solid guy. It's tough to see him go out so early, even before the regular season. So, hoping for the best with that.
Yeah, and then also with the linebacker, right? We don't know what's Josie Jewell. We don't know what's going to happen there. Um, I know there are rumblings there that he may not be back with the Broncos next season, and I know they drafted his replacement there in Drew Sanders, but yeah, having Jonas Griffith back is great, great. All right, guys. Well, we don't see any more comments, so we are going to
Ooh,
wrap it up here. Um,
actually, I think
oh, you
we
see one
have
here?
one
Oh,
more from
one more.
Michael.
Oh, we got Mike. All right, Mike. Mike Ronquillo coming in. Great show tonight. Ron and Dylan on Orange and Blue View. Go Broncos. Thank you, Mike. We appreciate you coming in the chat as always and supporting us, my man. Thank you,
Yep.
thank you, thank you.
You're the man, Michael.
You are the man. Yes, you are for sure. All right, just kind of perusing one more time. All right. So yeah, again, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We appreciate you. Um, Again, if you don't do anything else, guys, please make sure that you like, subscribe, and share on all platforms. Again, we have different podcasts, different nights, different hosts, different opinions. So just tune in and make sure you share it across all the platforms, and also follow us on X. I'm at Ron White NFL, and that guy over there is at Dylan Von Arcs MHH. And of course, please go to milehighhuddle.com and you know look at some articles that we have. I've been publishing, Dylan's been publishing on all the Broncos stories and news out there. And that's it, guys. Any parting words for Broncos country tonight, Dylan?
Yeah, thanks guys for coming in. Just happy to be doing this every Saturday night with you, Ron. And I think I saw a comment earlier that said I look like I just got out of bed. I definitely need a haircut. It's getting a little too long up here. So I'll probably look a little cleaner the next time you see me.
That's well. Yeah, thanks guys for coming in. We appreciate you. And until next time, you guys have a great night and go Broncos.
Go Broncos.